And this is the reason why the podcast on Joe Rogan went completely viral. He made a number of what I regard as extremely bizarre arguments. So these weren't
Yes.
factual claims, but
Right.
modes of reasoning in the discussion with Smith. And the one that really got people's attention was where he claimed that he expressed shock and amusement that Smith had never been to Israel, Palestine, or even to the region.
Yes.
Now, I personally think this is an extremely bad argument, and
Yes.
obviously a lot of other people on the internet did as well, as evidenced by the overwhelming negative reaction to
Yes.
this argument. Now, of course, I'm not suggesting that just because a lot of people agree with me, I'm right.
Right.
Uh,
But just to interject really
you know,
quickly, so Murray's argument seemed to be that if you hadn't traveled to the region, you could not talk publicly about it, or you should at least refrain from talking publicly about it. And indeed, I think he said something like, it's my journalistic practice not to talk about countries that I've never visited, or something along
that's
those
right. Yeah,
lines,
that's
right?
what he said,
Yeah.
and that's more or less what
Yes.
he was arguing.
So
I
this
mean,
seems
yeah,
to be
this isn't a straw man. I mean, he did state that quite
that's correct. So
explicitly.
he
Yeah.
he made I guess we could call this a standpoint epistemology claim
Yeah,
that you have to have visited the area so that if I want to talk about some conflict in West Virginia, I should go to West Virginia. Otherwise, I should refrain from talking about it publicly, seems to be what he's
I
saying.
mean, he didn't necessarily go quite as far as to say you should completely refrain, but he did sort of express bemusement that someone would talk a lot about something without having been to the
I,
relevant country. And
I
then he
would
did,
say, yeah, there was like palpable outrage
yeah, it was,
Murray
yeah,
expressed
bordered
during
on
this part of
outrage.
the, yeah, yes. Perhaps a little condescending, like, you can't be serious. You haven't been there. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes.
And in Kissin's article, he actually defends this argument from Murray.
Right.
Koffnass doesn't defend it, from what I
Yes.
recall, but Kissin does, and he basically says that all Murray really meant was, you can learn about something if you see it with your own eyes, which I think is not a fair
So,
characterization of the
so
argument.
banal as to be worthless
Yeah.
and also not what Murray said.
Yeah, I mean, Murray went much further than that. If he
Right.
just said, "Oh,
If
by the
you,
way, Dave Smith, all else being equal, you might gain a little bit of perspective if you
correct.
wanted to visit the particular places we've been talking about."
Right.
But he didn't say that.
Yes. Yes.
So I was quite, and I was actually shocked that people defended this argument after the podcast was published. I
Yes.
assumed Murray was going to come out and say, "Yeah, okay. I mean, I stand by all my positions, but that, in that
Right.
particular argument I made was not the best." But he
Yeah.
doubled down,
Yes.
and this is in spite of the fact that, as numerous people pointed out, he frequently talks about countries he's never been to, such as Iran. And now,
Correct.
interestingly, Kissin, when I had a polite exchange with him on social media, said, "Well, that's because Murray can't get a visa
Right.
for Iran, because
R-
presumably because he's been very critical of the country." But that,
Right.
but that's irrelevant. If he can't get a
Yes.
visa, then he can't go there, and by his own rule, he shouldn't talk about it.
Yes. So that reminds me of in the debate. Now, Smith, well, whatever, it's criticizing his debate tactics beyond who cares. But Smith did say, I can't, I haven't visited Nazi Germany. Does that mean I can't talk about Nazi Germany? To which Murray retorted, well, you can't time travel, but you can travel. But again, that misses the point of the argument,
Exactly.
which is if you have this epistemological standard, it would suggest that you can't talk about events from the past, right? I mean, if you took it quite seriously.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the standard isn't you're only qualified to talk about a country in detail or extensively once you've been there. Then any
Unless you
event,
can't go there.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
that rule wouldn't make sense.
Yes, it would not make sense.
And of course, the claim also invites follow-up questions like, if I've been to Tel Aviv, can I talk about Jerusalem? If I've been
Right.
to
Right.
Donetsk, can I talk about Kiev?
If I went last month, can I talk about this
Right.
month? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, again, I respect Murray as a commentator, particularly on the issue of immigration in Europe, which he's written very eloquently about. But I think this is just a completely absurd argument.
Right, right.
Anyway,
Yes, I mean,
he made a number of other rather bizarre arguments, which we don't have to get into, which I lay out in the article. But my
yes.
point in reviewing all of this was to show that Murray himself is not an expert by the standards of his defenders.